your store visit yesterday. That's all, Mr. Kendrick, unless there's cross-examination from that inspector.
Ms. Furstein, any questions?
Mr. Holliday, is it your assertion, I thought I heard you say that the landscaping was fully restored as of May 2023?
Yes.
Okay, and so, fully restored, were you provided at any time a copy of the site plan that was approved when the property was first approved in May 2000?
No time.
At any time?
No.
Okay. The communication, multiple communications with, okay. Do you know of any time you requested reinspection? Do you know of any time that you requested reinspection to verify compliance that I did not reinspect and then did not provide results in the form of written assessment of the state of violations?
Yeah, I know there was a time where I believe when the landscaping, I'm talking to Brian Wood, who is our work supervision, who was doing the landscaping. He said he was in communications with you as far as the landscaping getting taken care of. And I'm going to just say, just assume because of the communication that we had after that initial that last visit in May, that it was never brought to my attention from you that the landscaping would need to be continued. The only thing that we talked about was the roofing repairs and also the electrical repairs.
Let me go backward. Is there any time that you're aware that I was requested to reinspect, that I did not reinspect, and did not provide written results of that reinspection?
No.
Had you received any of the prior inspection results? Prior to when you became involved?
No.
Okay, so did you ask me at any time to tell you where things, okay. Did you ask me at any time to tell you where things stood with the property and what was being deemed compliant and what was not?
Yes, it should have been our very initial conversation that we had in July of 2023.
Okay, all right. Do you have, so what did I tell you at that time?
At the time, the only thing, again, that we needed to talk about was the roofing and then also the electrical work that needed to be done because I believe it was also from permitting as well.
And with no mention of landscape? That if that's what's being asserted, I need to provide additional evidence because the. Did you ask for any previous results from inspections that were done? Okay.
Most of my communication with that was through Brian Wood.
Do you remember me when you first came on scene being very glad that you were involved and telling you that I would send you copies of the inspections that I had to date and where things stood and giving you a picture of where things stood at that time?
I know I received the original violations, but I don't recall receiving pictures.
Not pictures, but a written communication, like something like this, where
Yes.
I would have done a reinspection.
Yes.
And so I provided you something like that early on.
Yes.
And that's my recollection too. And so where in any of these forms, and then did you get updated versions of this? I'm looking, for example, at page 4B-35. Where did you get updates every once in a while when requested of this is where things stand today and what's compliant and what's not compliant?
You said, did I give updates?
Did you get any updates?
From my vendors, yes.
From me?
No, not from you.
Did you ever ask?
No.
Okay. Any time that the findings of fact states clearly that any compliance should be reported so that I can verify it, and so your assertion is not that you asked for an update for compliance and I didn't provide it, is it?
No,
I'm
that's
going to
correct.
object to, this has been asked and answered.
Okay, thank you.
And Ms. Herstein, I know you don't have a law degree, but this is, you ask him questions. You don't get to comment on his answers. I will allow you to comment on his answers afterwards.
Sorry, Your Honor.
That's okay.
You and your representative looked at this slide, and you mentioned that, that you thought that the picture in the lower left, July 5th, 2024, represented compliance.
Yes.
Okay. Even though there were no azaleas, there were plants missing from that picture, it looked better because there was mulch, but you're still representing the fact that you thought that that was compliant at that time. Okay, so do you recall receiving from me a November 17th, 2023 update that looks like this?
Yes.
Okay. And do you see, can you point to anywhere on page 4B-37 or page 4B-38 that I'm telling you that compliance has been achieved? I can tell you. I see a check mark right there on 4B-38. Do you see, were you aware that a number of plants were removed, died, pulled out again after that November 2023 date?
I was not aware.
Okay, and so looking at that with the new mulch put down, you weren't aware that there were full areas of plants that were missing
Correct.
again? Okay, all right.
But only because that shows that we didn't have any landscaping issues.
I understand. I totally understand now. And on the July, did you receive a July 5th, 2024 update?
Yes.
And do you recall seeing that this was indicated on that date, that the landscaping was again out of compliance?
Correct. This was your last final inspection. Prior to that, I think the only thing that you were checking at the time was just one extra lamp that we're missing, or that's what I was left with. The landscaping reappeared as far as needing to be corrected.
All right, and was it your understanding that any reoccurrence of a violation during the period of not having achieved final compliance needed to be addressed?
Yes.
Or else it would continue fines?
Yes.
Not that new violations could be brought
Correct.
in, but that any reoccurrence of these same violations would be at issue.
Correct.
And did you receive on that same, on the, I think, a July 5th date, did you receive a list of all of the plants that were nowhere on the property?
Yes.
Okay. So it is your understanding that while the case, during the time that the case hasn't been deemed fully compliant, individual violations which reoccur must also be addressed immediately to get to full compliance?
Objection, Your Honor, it's been asked and answered.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that I asked it the way that it made sense to me. Apologize.
Anything else, Ms.
I think
Herstein?
that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Earl?
Judge, if I could just offer a few minutes of closing remarks, and that's all you'll have to hear from me anymore, Your Honor. If I may ask Mr. Kendrick to have a seat and be excused as a witness.
Yes, you're excused, Mr. Kendrick. Closing, please.
Judge, thank you very much for entertaining the evidence today. It's clear, as I said, Your Honor, I didn't want to come into this courtroom today indignant and saying Dollar General and the landlord here have been in perfect compliance, and I just can't believe, what's happening. That's not it at all. And in fact, when you look back on the record here, there's plenty of gaps in the timeline. And I actually agree and stipulate with Madam Inspector that there was significant periods here of starting and stopping, where there was real good faith diligence at addressing these violations, and things pop up. Whether that's dealing with contractors, whether that's dealing with landlord-tenant disputes over coverage, whether that's dealing with landscaping contractors and who needs to be switched out, pulling permits for roofing contractors who maybe are taking a little longer than that. Certain days for permits. I mean, on the original list of violations that were flagged, it looked like 11 different violations needed some sort of permitting work. This was going to be a substantial project to get the store up to compliance, and the testimony I've tried to elicit to the court today, Your Honor, regardless of what the court decides on the actual fine issue, is that Dollar General and the property owner are taking this seriously and have Mr. Kendrick flown in from Memphis, Tennessee to go out and visit that store, be on site, follow up with store managers, and basically be that conduit communication that makes sure things get done. Judge, if you'll notice through the testimony that was elicited both on direct and cross, it seems like a lot started happening after July 2023. And I would offer to the court that's because Mr. Holliday came on the case and Dollar General as the tenant started to say, we've got to get stuff done. This fine is accruing. How are we going to handle these issues? As this dispute that kind of played out on cross came to, Your Honor, it seemed like in that initial conference call with Madam Inspector, the main issues were the roofing issues and the electrical problems. And that was where we were prioritizing things on the triage. It didn't seem at that time that landscaping issues were a major issue. And to the extent it falls on the property owner and the Dollar General to alert Madam Inspector that we are in compliance, we need a reinspection, we need, violations to continue to be chopped down, and that wasn't done, we take responsibility for that. And that falls into the sort of stopping and starting that we explained. Judge, we look at a 779-day allocation here as, I hate to say this on the record, Judge, but borderline punitive, of that there was good faith efforts here. After 2022, the order comes in, we're working. I think the timeline shows that in 2022, there was very diligent, good faith follow-up. We were down from 27 to 13 and making good progress. Hurricane Ian comes in, there's changeover of vendors, things are starting to fall through the cracks coming after into 2023. And Judge, honestly, to me, looking at the timeline, it looks like there's not much of an excuse from January 2023 to July of 2023. So I am asking the court for a reduction in the levy fines to focus on that 8-month of delay. From January 1st, 2023 to July, when Mr. Kendrick got involved, and suddenly there was a flurry of activity. Conference calls were being held. It's clear that maybe landscaping wasn't addressed, clearly enough at that front end, but there was consistent communication after July 2023 that got us to full compliance in September. And that included re-inspections where new issues were flagged, old issues were checked off. There was a continuing process there that got the store to good faith compliance. I want to leave the court with that evidence today that as of September, the violations are being handled, and that even Mr. Holliday testified, I'm looking at this store with a new eye now. If things are a little bit out of trimmed, I'm running it up the flagpole and dealing with the general manager, making sure that we're not back in here bothering Madam Inspector, loading her plate with violations. This has been a 2-year ordeal for her, and Dollar General takes that seriously. We wanted to emphasize to the court how seriously they're taking it by flying Mr. Kendrick in from Memphis, Tennessee here today to humanize this a little bit, Judge. This fine is ultimately going to be borne by the tenant, given the contractual relationship. That may not concern the court, but this is a store that's trying to provide business for the community, do right by the community, and provide a service. So they've recognized that, look, there was a period of non-compliance, there was a period of feet dragging here. We should have done better. But to the extent the claims process and the violation process is designed to flag violations and get them rectified, we got it done here. It took longer than it should have, but we're asking for a reasonable reduction in those fees and those asserted fines to more of an 8-month delay that's directly attributable to the respondent, while writing off maybe the remainder of that gap from the 8 months to the 779 to other assorted issues that came out through testimony, whether it's weather, contractor disputes, problems dealing with the city of who's actually calling the shots here, and those other mitigating factors. Thank you, Judge.
I appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Okay, well, we began this and I explained how I'm empowered to reduce fines, and it's basically reduced to a mathematical formula, and I have to take all of the testimony and evidence into consideration. And also what I have to take into consideration is what is not presented. I have an admission on the part of the city that there were 11 days that were attributable to permit delays, and I'm going to remove those. Hurricane Ian, Mr. Earl said took 14 days off of the schedule. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that's probably more than that. So I'm willing to double his estimate to 28. However, I do not have any evidence that beyond the weather and the admission from the city, that any of the delays were not directly attributable to either the tenant or the property owner. So while I do appreciate the fact that they are taking it seriously, with a lack of evidence, without photographs showing me that the landscaping was in compliance, as Mr. Holliday believed in July of 2023, I don't have anything that can countermand the decision of the city inspectors. So I am not a tremendous reduction. I'm going to order a reduction of 39 days, which is $9,750. Which brings the total to $185,030. In addition, $376.81 in administrative costs that will be paid within 30 days. Yes, Ms. Hurstein.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but based on the fact that in the middle of my cross-examining the representative, I realize a factual error that was made on my submission.
Oh, okay.
My suggestion at this point, based on that factual error, the respondent has already said that they see 8 months that they're responsible for. 8 months, 30 days, just rough math, approximately 30 days a month.
240 days.
240 days is $60,000 worth of non-compliance. And my suggestion, based on what I just observed in my own accounting, my suggestion is that if that be paid within 6 months, that the reduction could happen down to a $60,000 amount.
Okay. Well, Merry Christmas,
If I
Mr.
may
Earl.
Stand up and thank Madam Inspector for that graciousness and that recognition.
Okay.
And Judge, I can personally attest that we will get that paid.
Are you writing us a check right now?
Yeah.
$60,000 within 6 months. If it is not paid within 6 months, it reverts to $185.30. And I'm serious about wanting the administratives paid within 30 days, because they're less than $400.
Absolutely, Judge. Now, that total administrative number, just to, I have it right.
$376.81.
81 cents. That's within 30 days, and we will
Yes.
get,
Jerry, you clear? Thank you. You okay? All right. And is there, what?
If it's not paid within 6 months, it reverts to a lower amount that you
No,
were requesting?
$185,030.
So- Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
That's a heck of a deal.
And that's the amount minus the 39 days.
Thank you.
Yes.
yes, I think we're all on the same page. Not paid within 60 days, we revert back to his honor's reduction of $185,030.
And 30.
However, I can assure everyone, I will personally.
6 months, not 60 days.
6 months, yes, thank you.
Yes.
But I will personally ensure that it looks a lot more like 60 days. I will stay on that and make sure that everyone is taken care of.
Okay. Any other business to come before the court? Okay, the next code enforcement hearing is January 16th, 2025.